Hey everybody, it's Steve. I hope everything's going well with you, that you're taking care of yourselves and the ones that you love, and at the end of the day today, you're closer to Jesus Christ than you were when you woke up today. So it's been a kind of, I don't want to say a rough day, but rough in terms of my own expectations, which is kind of something I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But between that and life in general, and then just another kind of somewhat unsuccessful attempt to go out and, if you call it evangelizing, I'm not sure. I don't know if I consider myself doing that. And again, I'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. But that did get me thinking about the fact that if it's getting me down and dejected when, things don't go right or as planned, that I'm sure someone else is experiencing something. And if that's you, I hope this will give you some boost, some motivation to get back out there. And if you've not done this, I just hope this is something that may get you out there and willing to go talk to people about God and Jesus and the Bible, whether you call it evangelizing and what your point is. I just encourage you to get out and do it. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But what I'm going to do is talk about kind of two main things. I'm going to talk about a couple negatives or hurdles that in this, I guess, month-ish or so of doing all of this that I've come across, and maybe a couple ways to mitigate them or deal with them on your end. And then I wanted to just give some tips or things that I've noticed over the month or so of doing this, that hopefully if you can get familiar with these sooner, you won't have to go through the motions and you can prepare beforehand. So I'm going to take a moment, take a sip of water, and then we're going to launch into this. I do want to say I'm probably going to take this sign and the one over my shoulder and go walk around here, but it is very different just being here, sitting, and not being out and about in this. Now it's very empty compared to most days, so we'll see what happens after this though. So I want to talk about hurdles, and the first thing I kind of want to talk about is the fear of rejection, and this kind of ties into a lot of these other things. So what I want to focus on is kind of the, as I mentioned before in the other part, expectations. And it's hard for me personally to manage my expectations. I found myself several times today just marveling over the fact that I felt like a failure, or that today was a waste. When I went out, and I'll talk more about where I went in a different part of this, but there's the expectation of that, wanting everything to go perfectly fluid. I don't know about you, but sometimes when things don't go as I expect them or hope or wish them to, my brain goes to, well, maybe I did something outside of God's plan or something like that. And then I just have to kind of take a step back and realize that nothing is a waste. And more importantly, a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, some of it are things that I learned in these situations. I think that's the most important thing, kind of making sure that if something doesn't work, you look at why. And you can assess if it's a long-term thing, if it may just be a one-time thing. Maybe I went out and it happened to be raining. Not the end of the world, and tomorrow it may not rain, but you may go to a place where you're not welcome. It's not set up for it. You may think someplace is different before you go and interact with it, if that makes sense. So then just kind of in terms of reaching people, talking to people, I don't know, but I'll talk about some of those here in a little bit, so I'm going to go on to the next one. This could probably be tied in with the next one I'm going to do, or put in as a tip, but one of the hurdles I'm struggling with is finding another person to do this with. I do find myself frustrated at times, but I push that aside because I'm not in a rush to do anything anymore. I want to stay on God's path and do this at God's pace. So what I don't want to do is force myself into a situation that I shouldn't be in. So and I recommend highly getting with another person for this, someone who can do the camera, someone who can help you, someone who may have a different skill set or experience or perspective set than you. There's a myriad of different reasons why you should bring someone else out when you do this. And God willing, I will in the future, but that's been a hurdle for me. Just trying to find someone interested. That's been the first hurdle. But then there's a nit after that. Like I say, there's a form of chemistry where you want to make sure you are good interacting with one another. So that has been another hurdle I've been trying to deal with. So with that, if you know anybody that happens to be in Southeast Michigan, Sterling Heights area, and does this and can point them in my direction or me into theirs, I would really appreciate that. This is one thing that I don't often think of myself, but this is something for you to keep in your brain bucket, as they say. You need to be aware of your actual fear and your actual fears. And that's very important, especially if you're out here alone when you do this like I am. But you need to, a lot of this I'm going to kind of touch on below, or I should say in the next part with tips and stuff. But you need to be mindful of your fears and whether they are something that should stop you from doing something or should make you adjust your behavior to do it anyway. I can say it's very easy for someone like me. I'm 6'2", 200-ish pounds. I served in the Marine Corps. So I'm not necessarily worried if someone my size comes up to me, but I'm not a 5'4" female. I'm not a, the beanpole of a guy. I'm not socially anxious like that. I don't have issues. So my point is, you may do that. You may have those, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you do have those fears, you should think about them up front and manage them beforehand, and not go out and get caught alone, where all of a sudden you realize how alone and how vulnerable you can feel when you're out there doing that. You're focused on one person, and it's hard sometimes to focus on what's going on around you and things like that. So any kind of actual fear like that, whether it could be people of a certain size, some people are fearful at night, some people don't do well in large crowds and all of that. So if you have any particular kind of fear, anxiety, or apprehension about that, again, I think you should first sit there and say, can I still do it? Can I still go out and talk to people about Jesus and the Bible and God and salvation? If the answer is yes, but, then listen to that but, because that but is something that you should probably not stop you from doing what you should do. It's something that, again, find someone to build you up, find people to comfort you, find methods and ways and habits that can help you to assuage those fears and those anxieties and conquer them instead. So, but be realistic with yourself. That's, I think, the most important thing. Don't rush into it and don't make any brash decisions. These I had listed as 2 points, but I'm going to kind of tie them together. There is which kind of could have gone with fears, but this is more of a spiritual aspect, not the physical and mental that fear was. But there's the chance that you will upset someone, you could misspeak or not have an answer, you could trigger someone. And all of those are things that you will have to navigate beforehand. And more importantly, it's something I'm learning and having to tell myself, but when there are ridiculers, mockers, people who are angry, they're not mad at you, they're mad at Jesus and the gospel. And don't take that personally, because as the Bible says, they hated him before they hated me. So, and blessed are those persecuted in the name of the Lord. So, it's just something that I believe that you should kind of navigate and come to terms with. And under the caveat that, again, for the majority of my life, I, as a year into being a Christian, I was the person on the other end that you could, not only, I wasn't easily offended, I was angered and triggered and would want to verbally beat down anyone who approached me with that. So you need to be ready for things like that. And you can practice and think ahead, but as the Marine Corps says, plans rarely progress past contact. But it's always good to kind of think of those things. Maybe think of situations you were in and what you would have said to yourself or something like that. it's hard to think of every possibility and an infinite amount of things, so don't beat yourself up at that. But with that, one thing I encourage you to do, this is something, again, this goes back to things that you're comfortable with or may not be comfortable with. But with those people, you may upset, you may misspeak, or you may not have an answer for something in that moment. Offer them a way to contact you. Meaning, you know what, that never occurred to me. I never thought of that. I don't know. I'm sorry I said that. Can we talk at another time? Do you want to meet sometime somewhere else? Something like that, where you can not have to put all that pressure in yourself at the moment. And the other thing is, the part of the fear of rejection is being rejected and letting it go. You may have that person who just wants nothing to do with you. You may think that you may have uprooted them and threw them away from Jesus, but what you may have done is planted that seed. So don't ever discount just taking the time to talk to someone about it, because those seeds can be planted like that. 2 more hurdles. This one is something that came up today and has been coming up, which is legalities. Now, in terms of jail and prison, getting arrested and interacting with cops when talking to people about Jesus Christ and the Bible and the gospel, there's a couple ways to look at it, and the most important way to look at it is what's going on in your life. You have a series of circumstances and situations and responsibilities that I don't, and I similarly have ones that you don't. So it's easy for some people to say, I'll go to jail right now for principle, and it's easier for some people to say, I can't do that right now. Me, for example, I'm willing to go to jail as long as it's something that is principled, not for ego, obviously, but I have to worry then about the fact that I don't have a social security or a social network, meaning I'm not going to get bailed out if I'm in there for 5 days and have to post bail. I can't afford it myself, and I'm pretty sure you're not going to come and bail me out, and I don't have anyone else to do that. So if I'm not immediately released, I'm going to be in jail for a couple days. I'll have to navigate all that. You may have access to things that will be able to get you out of there. You may have lawyers, all that. I don't. You just may not be willing to go to jail. You may have kids that you have to pick up tomorrow, and so on and so forth, whereas when I'm out and I know I don't have my kids for weeks, that's something I can navigate. I can just go, and if I have a brush with authorities, then that's that. Now, I was presented with 2 different ways of looking at it. One is it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, meaning go somewhere, and if they tell you to leave, which I don't think is wrong. The other way I look at it is the Bible tells me to respect those in authority, and that the rules, because they are put in place by God as mechanisms to institute God's justice in a worldly and earthly way. So I need to respect them. But that is also based on them being, as I keep saying, stewards of God's word, and I'm going to talk about that below, but you know, when they are unjust and wielding that power in a way that is unfit for them, then it is my right and I believe my duty to present that to them, and wherever that goes, that will take me. But there are ways to alleviate this, meaning you can go and look at places ahead of time. If you're going to a public place, you can look up rules, public policies, things like that, and or call a security or management office if that's the route that you feel like going, if that's the way that you want to handle it. You can just, if they ask you to leave. You don't have, you can go the other route, asking why and how come. Can I see your policy? Just as an example, I was at a mall today, Somerset, and they tell me I can't record while people are walking around recording, while the people around are saying, yeah, bloggers and vloggers come through here all the time. And if you look up Somerset Mall, Clinton Township, you can find people having recorded there. So I can go in there and hoot and holler and stomp my feet, or I could focus on finding a place that just doesn't care if I'm over there preaching about Jesus to people. And is it worth fighting that? Maybe. It very well may be, but that's something that you need to assess. And I'll talk again, actually quite a bit more about that after this, but I am going to talk about my last hurdle, so to speak, or apprehension about evangelizing after I take my sip of water. This kind of ties in with the upsetting or misspeaking or not having an answer, but the fear of not saving someone. I don't know about you, but since being saved, I can't think of anything else I want to talk to anybody about. I want to scream from the rooftops. I want to solve everybody's salvation problem, but sometimes I need to stop and think, A, it took me 42 years to come to where I'm at now, so I can't expect that of others, and B, it's not me at all. I can't save anyone, and I won't. That's only in God's hands. So that kind of ties in with the expectations. I can't go out there and expect to save the entire world, even if I want to. I want to, talk to everyone. I want to share time with everyone. I get to know everyone so I can find out what's missing in their life that God and Jesus can provide, or what things they're lacking that they don't even know God can provide. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if anyone I've ever talked to has ever thought about anything I said after the moment that I turned away from them. So, it's not like I'm walking around asking people for follow-ups, getting progress reports or anything like that, which is hard. But that is out of my hands, and I can only do what I can do, and here I am doing it. So with that done, I'm going to take a moment, take another sip, flip my list here, and go over some of the tips and observations and things I've noticed doing this that may help you, or hopefully keep you from putting these things up on this hurdle list that I just went over. So I'll be right back.